Right folks, and welcome back. So yesterday I did a video about building and designing our off-grid solar system, and it's brought up a few questions. So what people keep asking is about designing their own solar system, doing it on a budget, and how to size their solar system. Now there is calculators, and you can do an audit of your current energy usage, but this is something that everybody struggles with. Unless you're getting a solar expert to come in and design your system, as a layman you're probably going to struggle. I struggled, everybody I know struggles with this. So how do you know how big the inverter needs to be, the battery bank and the solar system? The thing is, all this stuff is expensive, and there's no point having a massive solar array, a massive battery bank, and you don't actually need all that power, and you've got a big system to maintain and even pay for at the start. So how do you know how to size the system? Well, this is really difficult because most people that are moving off grid will be living in a normal house or something like that. And you can do an audit on the electric you currently use, like electric heating, hair dryers, microwave, electric oven. But the thing is, if you're moving off grid, you're going to have to change the way you look at electric and the way you use it. Now, this will be different if you're a single person moving off grid on your own, or if you've got a family. If you're a single person, you're probably going to be able to be pretty frugal with your electric usage. If you work all day and you're only here at night, again, your usage is going to be a lot less than somebody that's maybe retired or doesn't work that needs to use electric all day. The same if you've got teenage kids that are using a lot of electrical appliances, hair straighteners, hair dryers, all that's a massive usage on electric. So there's three basic fundamentals. So before you buy anything, and this is where people come unstuck, this is one of the most common things that people contact when they say, I've bought all this stuff and it doesn't work, I've put it together, it doesn't work. Before you start buying stuff off eBay, Amazon, etc., you need to decide what system you're going for. So basic fundamentals, you either have on the DC side a 12 volt, 24 volt or 48 volt system. Now if you're in a camper van or a touring caravan, that sort of thing, you're going to almost definitely be on a 12 volt system. So you'd be using something like a 12 volt system with a couple of leisure batteries, and a 1600 watt inverter would be about the maximum you can reasonably run on that system without needing massive cables, etc. So 12 volt system, probably maximum 1600 watt inverter, and the maximum capabilities of that would be, like I say, a van, a camper van, a day van, some sort of touring caravan, whether it be sited or in use. Then a static caravan. Well, a static caravan, most static caravans, and I'm going to be talking about ones like we've got here that have got gas central heating or gas heating, gas for cooking, and they've been designed only to have a 13 amp supply. So the cable coming in is only a 2.5mm cable, and the maximum electric you can get into that caravan is 13 amp. So for that system, something like this, 3 kilowatt inverter would be suitable. Now, because you're stepping up in power going out, you need to up the volts, because the amps would be too much. You wouldn't actually physically be able to draw that through the cables. So if you're going up to that sort of system, so static caravan, or say a hut, like a hunting lodge, a hut, a Scottish hut, a bothy, something like that, a 3 kilowatt inverter would be suitable, would be more than enough to run your system. But you need to be on a 24 volt DC side, so your batteries, your charge controller, etc. would be 24 volt. Now, this isn't a hard and fast rule, but I'm just trying to give people a guide, because people keep asking the same question and there's not a lot of information. Everybody's on the fence, like people say, well, you need to calculate your needs, you need to calculate this. This is a guide, it's a good guide. Now a house, an off-grid house, and I'm not talking about a mansion, I'm talking about something that's probably 100 square metres. Again, you're using alternative fuels for cooking, heating, hot water, so you may be using a wood burner, you may be using oil for heating or gas. I'm probably going to be using propane, LPG for your cooking, or at least your hob. You may be using an electric oven, a microwave, but you're not using anything that uses big amounts of power like electric heating. You're not using an electric shower, you're not using electric for your hot water. Now on that sort of system, something like a 5 kilowatt inverter on a 48 volts battery bank would suffice, would be suitable. Something like that Victron Quattro that I've got in the new system, so that's a 48 volt 5 kilowatt inverter. Then what sort of storage do you need? So on a 12 volt on a 12 volt system with a 1600 watt inverter, you're probably going to need about 2.5 kilowatt of batteries. They're probably going to be leisure type batteries. You're not going to use deep cell forklift or pylon type batteries in a caravan or in a camper van. So on that sort of system, say 1600 watt inverter, 12 volt, and something like a kilowatt of solar would suffice and would give you enough power through the day. So that would be like 4 solar panels, inverter, charge controller, a couple of batteries. On a 24 volt system like this, again, you'd probably be generating and using about 8 kilowatt of power a day, sensibly. And so a system like this, we've got 11 kilowatt of battery storage, we've got a 3 kilowatt 24 volt inverter, and here we've got 150 volt 70 amp charge controller. So something like this on a 24 volt system. Now this charge controller will do 12 volt, 24 volt or 48 volt, and the reason we bought this is that it can move with us as the system progresses. We don't have to change our equipment. The inverter can't move, but this can. So this inverter, if we're using this on 12 volt, it would work with a maximum of 750 watt of solar panels, so that would be 3 solar panels. When we jump up to 24 volt, because the amps are less, because the volts have increased, it can charge 1500 watts of solar panels like we've got. So 24 volt system, 3 kilowatt inverter, 1500 watt of solar. 1500 watt of solar would easily give you about 8 kilowatt on an average day like this, average spring day, which would be enough for your needs without running a generator. Now let's talk about bigger systems. So here we've had a 12 volt system, then we jumped to 24 volt 5 years ago, and now we're building the bothy. We need a bigger inverter, we need more power. The old 3 kilowatt inverter just won't be enough to run that building. So we've gone up to a 48 volt system, and this is a 5 kilowatt inverter. Now, because we've jumped up to 48 volts, that means these charge controllers can handle more solar panels because the volts are higher, the amps are less, pushing into the batteries. So this is the same as the Victron, so this is 150 volt and this is an 80 amp. So similar to that, on a 24 volt system, that would handle 1500 watt of solar panels each. But when we jump to the 48 volt, that can take 3000 watt of solar panels, so we can put more solar panels on the same charge controller. So on this system, what would run like the bothy on its own, forgetting about the workshop, etc., would be your 48 volt 5 kilowatt inverter. That would be suitable, that would have enough power. One of these charge controllers working at 48 volts, putting 80 amps into the batteries, and 12 solar panels, and our solar panels are older ex-solar farm panels, so they're 250 watt each, so 12 of those gives 3000 watts. So 12 solar panels is ideally matched for one of those solar charge controllers. It will produce about 12 to 15 kilowatt of power a day on an average day. It'll produce more in the summer, less in the winter. But what you'll come up against in the summer is you just haven't got the availability of storage in the batteries. But again, more batteries is more cost and it's more maintenance because your batteries have a limited lifespan. So here, we've got the 5 kilowatt 48 volt inverter. In the battery cupboard, we're having 22 kilowatt of battery storage. So this is going to run our bothy, and this would run a normal sized house in Scotland, England, Ireland, the UK. Maybe a bit different to abroad in America, because you'll have different amounts of sun, different times of year, etc. But this is basic system sizing, and this is as simple as I can break it down in layman's terms, because I know how difficult this was for me to learn and to take in when we were first off grid. I bought books, there wasn't a lot of information on YouTube at the time, and although I am a qualified electrician, the solar side of things and off-grid is totally different. It's totally different to anything you ever learn at college. You don't learn about this. So, cost. What does it cost? Well, it all depends on the system components you're using. On the last video, I said, personally, I wouldn't use the cheap Chinese unbranded equipment. That's the mistake most people make, is that they buy the stuff before they know what they're doing. They sit on eBay and they see stuff that's cheap, like a 3 kilowatt inverter. Oh, it's only 250 quid, I'll buy that. And then when they come to put everything together, it doesn't work together. So you've got to design your system, decide your DC voltage, decide the size of your inverter, decide how many kilowatt of solar you're having from the outset, so the size of the solar charge controller, buy your panels. That's only part of the cost. The panels over there, I've got 24 panels to go on the roof and they cost me £900 delivered. Then the brackets to go on the corrugated roof, proper brackets, I don't mean sandpit toys, I mean proper solar brackets, they were £480. They were the cheapest I could get. They came off a proper supplier in the UK, and that means my solar panels aren't going to blow away, and it means I can just slacken a screw and maintain them, check the plugs, anything goes wrong I can sort them. So this is where the cost of your solar system creeps up. Brackets, cabling, stuff like sleeving, mounting equipment. That's a junction box, basically a buzz bar. Earthing blocks, you need DC earthing, AC earthing. All this costs money. You need battery switches, battery fuses, mega fuses. I've just spent about another £500 last night on eBay buying more stuff to finish this system. So this system here, this is a bit extreme because I've got 3 inverters, but this is basically doing the bothy. Initially this will still be doing the caravan and this will be doing the workshop, so I'm trying to run 3 buildings, not all at the same time, but I'm trying to run 3 buildings off one system. So I've gone over the top. My system is going to come in at about £10,000, self-built, with no specialist labour, second-hand and some new stuff. And then my generator was about 2,200, so we'll be at about 12,500. And it's not all new stuff. The system in that shed cost £3,000. Now we've had inflation since then. Some of that stuff will have gone up in price. We could have done it cheaper by buying second-hand solar panels. I bought new then. I don't think I really gained anything buying new. That cost £3,000. So that system there cost £3,000. If I was only having this inverter, 1 solar charge controller, 1 combiner box, the batteries, solar panels, I reckon I could build this system to run a house for £6,000 myself. If you have to get somebody in to wire it up, that'll be a different situation, but I reckon I could run this for £6,000 if I hadn't gone over the top, but I'm trying to do more than just run a house here. If you're trying to do a camper van conversion or a small van, your system ain't going to be a lot cheaper than the 24 volt system. And this is kind of where I'm coming to. A lot of people start off on a 12 volt system and waste money. They buy a lot of stuff, realise that the inverter's not big enough, they try and buy a bigger inverter, run it on 12 volt, and the cables just can't draw the amps. So you've maybe got a 3 kilowatt inverter, but you can't run the stuff in your caravan. Now, I know some of this is hard to understand and hard to take in. It's a bit confusing, amps, volts, especially DC and AC. But basically, That there is a 25mm cable. So if you've got a 25mm cable going from your battery to your inverter at 12 volts, it's like running a garden hose. You put a bigger inverter on, you can't get that water to come out any faster. You can't draw it any faster, so you can't draw the amps any faster. The same when you're trying to push the amps into the batteries at 12 volt. If you put more and more solar panels on, all that happens is your cable will heat up. If you've got fuses, your fuse will blow. And if you've not got fuses and you're pushing too many amps, your cables will set on fire. And somebody on my Facebook commented that his solar system went on fire last year. But again, it's a DIY install without technical help, without technical knowledge, without the calculations, and that's what we're up against. So I'm basically going to leave the video here. That's just a basic insight into system size and roughly what it'll cost in April 2023. We've just had about 10% inflation in the UK, so stuff's going up. And if you're watching this video in a few months' time, everything's probably gone up again. But if you like the video, can you please like and subscribe? Can you please ring that little bell? And any questions, drop it in the comments below and I'll try my hardest to answer, folks. Thank you.